Have you ever paused to consider how some civilizations, long vanished into the annals of history, still echo in almost every aspect of our modern world?
It's quite striking, isn't it?
From the intricate legal systems that govern our societies to the very architectural marvels that define our cityscapes, their influence is undeniably profound.
You really can't escape it.
Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into one such civilization, the Roman Empire. A power that, for centuries, shaped the course of human history and laid foundations that are not just visible, but deeply ingrained in our lives today. Our mission on this deep dive is to sift through a fascinating stack of sources, articles, cutting-edge research, and even some of our own compiled notes to distill the most important nuggets of knowledge about this incredible empire.
Yeah, really get to the core of it.
We're going to trace its story from its somewhat mysterious, almost mythic origins, all the way through to its vast, indelible influence that continues to resonate globally.
And this isn't going to be a dry recitation of dates and battles, so, those pivotal moments are certainly part of the story.
Right. Our deep dive is specifically designed to unravel the rich cultural tapestry of Rome, how they lived their daily lives, the core beliefs that shaped their worldview, the clothes they wore that subtly signaled their status, and the truly incredible spaces they engineered and inhabited. We aim to uncover surprising facts and profound insights that illustrate Rome's unique genius, a genius that often involved borrowing, adapting, and then masterfully making it their own.
That's exactly right. We're talking about everything from the enigmatic Etruscan roots that provided Rome with its earliest cultural DNA to the sheer grandeur and innovative power of Roman concrete, which quite literally built an empire.
It's a huge scope.
It's going to be an epic journey through time and a real chance for us to understand Rome not just as a historical entity, but as a living legacy. Okay, let's get into it. To truly begin our journey and understand Rome, we have to start not with the famous tale of Romulus and Remus, but with a lesser-known, yet incredibly crucial precursor, the Etruscan civilization.
Right, the Etruscans. These people flourished from around 1000 to 100 BC, primarily in what we know today as modern Tuscany, a region they called Etruria.
What's truly fascinating about the Etruscans is how they've been historically perceived. For centuries, they've often been characterized as, well, decadent, even bloodthirsty, with a clear predilection for piracy and a deep-seated superstition. This characterization is more than just an ancient stereotype. It's interesting because it might have subtly yet profoundly influenced how the later Romans viewed themselves and, crucially, how they actively crafted their own identity.
So like a reaction against that image.
Exactly. If the Etruscans were seen as undisciplined or excessively superstitious, it may have fueled Rome's emphasis on virtus, the core Roman value encompassing virtue, discipline, duty, civic responsibility. It was possibly a conscious effort to differentiate themselves from these perceived flaws of their predecessors, forging a narrative of Roman exceptionalism. Despite these historical portrayals, the Etruscans left a very significant and often underestimated mark, particularly in art and architecture, even before Rome fully rose to power.
Right.
Their funerary art, for instance, is incredibly telling. The intricate sarcophagi and vibrant tomb paintings didn't just depict death, they reflected a very strong, almost joyful belief in the afterlife.
Joyful. That's interesting.
Yeah, highlighting just how central this concept was to their culture. You see figures reclining as if at a banquet, enjoying eternal life, which is quite a contrast to some more somber funerary traditions we see elsewhere. And then there's their temple architecture. While few perfectly preserved examples remain, their unique designs, with elevated platforms and a distinct frontality, meaning they were meant to be approached from a single grand entrance, clearly influenced the early forms that Roman temples would later adopt.
So setting them apart from the Greek style?
Exactly, setting them apart from the Greek temple model, which was often designed to be viewed from all sides. The Etruscan approach was much more focused on that frontal approach.
So from these intriguing and foundational Etruscan roots, we transition to the foundational myths of Rome itself. These stories provided not just a history, but a powerful narrative for their origins and, crucially, for their destiny as a people.
Indeed. Our sources really highlight Virgil's epic poem, the Aeneid. The entire purpose of this monumental work was to deliberately link the beginning of the Roman people to the greatest and most revered ancient legends of Greece.
So it was intentional myth-making.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just a story. It was a grand national origin myth designed to elevate Rome's standing and provide it with a heroic, almost divinely sanctioned lineage. The tale recounts Aeneas of Troy, who, according to Virgil, bravely escaped the destruction of his city at the hands of the Greeks. He's depicted bearing his aged father, Anchises, on his shoulders and leading his little son, Ascanius, by the hand.
That iconic image.
Right. Making their way from the burning fortress with a group of loyal followers, after many years of wandering across the Mediterranean, facing trials and tribulations, they finally arrived at the mouth of the Tiber River in Italy.
And that's where it all starts.
Well, that's where they founded the city of Alba Longa, and Aeneas married Lavinia, establishing a new Trojan line in Italy. The significance of this origin story for Roman identity is immense. It connected them directly to a heroic Greek past, linking them to a lineage of greatness.
But still distinct.
Exactly, while simultaneously forging their own distinct future, setting them apart as destined for something new and grand. It provided a powerful narrative of endurance and divine favor, painting Rome as the inheritor of a grand tradition and the progenitor of an even greater one.
And from that grand, almost cosmic origin story, we move to the more visceral, immediate myth of Rome's direct founding, the one most people recognize.
That's the story of the twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, who are said to be descendants of Aeneas through the kings of Alba Longa. The myth states that these brothers, abandoned as infants, were suckled by a she-wolf, rescued by a shepherd, and eventually decided to found a city. However, a fierce dispute arose over where to build it,
Famous argument.
leading Romulus to ultimately kill his twin brother, Remus. It's a very dramatic and foundational moment, a city born from fratricide. Rome was then built on the Palatine Hill, one of the 7 hills that would become the core of the future empire.
Wow, that's quite a start. Does that myth say something about their character?
Well, this dark, violent act at Rome's very beginning does pose an interesting question. Did this myth reflect a necessary brutality for empire building, or perhaps an inherent tension within Roman society? It suggests that even in their foundational narrative, conflict and decisive action were paramount.
And of course, the enduring visual emblem of this story is the iconic Capitoline she-wolf with the twins, Romulus and Remus.
Absolutely. The bronze effigy of the she-wolf isn't just a venerable emblem of Rome. It's one of the most striking animal sculptures to have survived antiquity.
It really is powerful.
What's truly fascinating here is how these founding myths, even with their later embellishments, became so central to the Roman narrative, constantly reinforced through art and literature. Our sources point out a truly surprising detail about the sculpture itself. The twin boys were not originally part of the ancient bronze she-wolf sculpture.
Wait, really?
Yeah. While the motif of the 2 small children, Romulus and Remus, being suckled by the she-wolf was certainly familiar in Roman art, the bronze figures of the boys were a Renaissance addition, likely in the 15th century.
No way, I never knew that.
It's amazing, right? Yet their inclusion solidified the sculpture's iconic status and its powerful connection to Rome's origin story, showcasing how even foundational myths and their artistic representations can be shaped and retold over time to serve present narratives and solidify identity.
That's fascinating. Okay, so following these foundational myths, Rome began its incredible ascent. After the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BC, the entire Mediterranean region was left with a significant power vacuum.
A huge vacuum. Kingdoms carved out by Alexander's generals struggled for dominance, and amidst this flux, Rome was perfectly poised to fill it, beginning its relentless rise to power.
They stepped right in.
They did. Our sources detail the truly vast geographic reach of the Roman legions. Their influence stretched from Armenia and Mesopotamia in the east to Spain in the west, and all the way down to Egypt in the south.
Incredible reach.
What's crucial to understand is that everywhere the Roman legions went, they didn't just conquer territory through military might, they meticulously brought their culture with them. This was a deliberate and impactful spread of Roman ideas, institutions, and ways of life.
So it wasn't just conquest, it was integration.
In a way, yes. This bringing culture wasn't always gentle, of course. It was a complex process of assimilation, integration, and at times, sheer dominance. They built roads, established legal systems, introduced Latin, and created infrastructure that fundamentally Romanized the conquered lands, turning them into extensions of the empire rather than mere possessions.
And this brings up a key distinction when we compare Rome's cultural identity to that of ancient Greece. They seem very different, despite Rome's heavy borrowing.
Precisely. Greece, for all its city-states, possessed a deep, unified cultural identity rooted in shared language, mythology, philosophy, and artistic ideals, a cohesive Hellenic heritage that permeated everything.
A single cultural thread, almost?
Kind of, yeah. Rome, on the other hand, was truly a melting pot from its earliest days. They were masters at absorbing diverse influences, integrating rather than purely dominating. This adaptability, this political genius of Rome, as our sources put it, was a key factor in their success.
So flexibility was key.
Absolutely. It wasn't just brute force, it was their capacity to integrate conquered peoples and ideas that allowed for such massive expansion and enduring control. Unlike some empires that sought to obliterate local cultures, Rome often allowed them to persist, even incorporating their deities and practices as long as Roman authority was recognized.
That's a very pragmatic approach.
Yeah. Extremely pragmatic. It differed significantly from, say, the more rigid cultural dominance of earlier empires, allowing Rome to expand and hold its vast territories for centuries.
And later, this vast empire saw a significant turning point with Constantine's establishment of an eastern capital in Byzantium in AD 330, renaming it Constantinople.
Right. That wasn't just a new city. It signaled a fundamental shift in the empire's structure and focus, a recognition of the growing importance of the eastern provinces. A huge moment.
Moving from their geographic expansion, it's equally fascinating to delve into the evolution of Roman religion. It started with unique early forms, but then saw this widespread, almost insatiable absorption of foreign deities as they expanded.
Yeah, their religious journey is really something. Early in Rome's history, their ancient religion was entirely their own, largely animistic, focused on practical rituals and maintaining the paxiorum, or peace with the gods, for the prosperity and good of the state.
So very practical, state-focused.
Very much so. It was less about personal salvation and more about civic duty. But as they conquered neighboring territories, they pragmatically absorbed new beliefs and practices. This was less about imposing their gods and more about incorporating others, especially from the Greeks.
The Greek influence again?
Oh, profoundly. Greek literature and mythology became hugely influential. Greek mythology was literally assimilated into Roman mythology to fill in gaps, especially where their own nascent pantheon might have lacked rich narratives or personifications for certain aspects of life or nature.
So they kind of mapped Greek gods onto their own.
Pretty much, yeah. Eventually, Romans adopted Greek myths on a broad scale, creating their unique borrowed pantheon, where Greek deities like Zeus, Hera, and Ares found their Roman counterparts in Jupiter, Juno, and Mars. Even foreign gods like Sol, a sun god, gained prominence later.
It does raise that interesting question you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
What does it mean for a society to actively fill gaps in its own spiritual understanding by borrowing like that?
It speaks volumes, doesn't it? It points to a deep pragmatism and perhaps a surprising lack of dogmatism, allowing for such extensive cultural integration. It's almost as if they saw divine power as something to be collected and harnessed, regardless of its origin.
And to manage this evolving and complex spiritual landscape, the Romans had two key kinds of priests, each with a distinct and powerful role.
Yes, these roles were incredibly significant. First, you had the pontifices.
Where we get pontiff from.
Exactly. They were the leaders of Roman religious organizations, essentially the high priests. Their responsibilities were vast and absolutely integral to the public life of Rome. Overseeing state rituals, interpreting divine law, maintaining the official calendar, and even advising on legal matters. Their authority was immense, intertwining deeply with the state's power structure.
Wow, so religion and seat were very closely linked.
Inextricably. Then you had the augurs. These individuals specialized in divining the will of the gods through elaborate rituals. Often, though not always, these rituals involved sacrifice.
Like reading entrails and things.
Sometimes, yes, but more famously, interpreting omens like the flight patterns of birds, the behavior of animals, or other natural phenomena. Augurs provided crucial guidance on public decisions, military campaigns, and even personal matters.
So nothing major happened without consulting them.
Pretty much. These figures were so integral that almost no major public undertaking would begin without consulting the omens, ensuring the favor of the gods for the Roman state. It highlights how deeply ingrained religious belief and practice were in every aspect of Roman governance and daily life.
This brings us neatly to Rome's enduring political legacy. It's a common observation, isn't it, that the government of the United States is based partly on Rome's model.
It absolutely is. It's a testament to their lasting influence and ingenuity in governance.
So how did that start?
It all began with a truly pivotal moment. The Romans overthrowing their Etruscan conquerors in 509 BCE. For centuries, the Etruscans, centered north of Rome, had ruled over them.
Right, the ones they reacted against earlier.
Precisely. Once freed, the Romans were deeply determined to avoid a return to monarchy, having endured years under what one historian called the unyielding yoke of a king. This experience taught them a crucial lesson. They absolutely had to safeguard against the rule and possible oppression of one individual.
So the Republic was born out of that fear.
Essentially, yes. They established a republic, a radical experiment in governance for its time, designed with built-in mechanisms to prevent the concentration of power. In the early stages of this republic, power lay solely in the hands of the elite, the old landowning families, known as the patricians.
The upper crust.
Exactly. Unfortunately, for the majority of the population, the plebeians, our sources call them the remainder and largest share of the city's population, initially had very little political power.
That sounds like a recipe for conflict.
It was. However, these class struggles, which our sources note are similar to those seen in ancient Athens, eventually found their fruition in the Roman Republic. Over centuries, the plebeians fought for and won greater rights and representation.
How did they do that?
Through things like creating institutions like the tribunes of the plebs, who could veto legislation harmful to the plebeians, and the codification of laws like the 12 Tables, which provided greater legal transparency.
Okay.
What's truly remarkable is that the Republic, with its underlying framework of shared power, survived despite the constant interference and eventual dominance of later emperors, carrying its core principles of law and governance all the way through the Roman Empire period. It shows its fundamental robustness.
So, given their strong aversion to monarchy, how did they actually design a government to prevent tyranny? What were the specific mechanisms they put in place?
That aversion to individual rule led them to intentionally divide real authority, or imperium. Instead of a single king, they chose two consuls.
Two, to keep each other in check.
Precisely. They served as the chief magistrates and acted as a clear guard against despotism. These consuls held supreme executive power, commanding the army, presiding over the Senate, and proposing legislation. As a symbol of their immense authority, they wore a traditional woolen toga, often edged with a purple stripe.
And the Senate. What was its role initially?
Then there's the Senate. Now, initially, the Roman Senate had little, if any, legislative authority. That power rested in the hands of the popular assemblies.
So they didn't make the laws?
Not directly, no. But the Senate's power was immense in other, more subtle ways. Senators not only discussed both domestic and foreign policy, but also supervised relations with foreign powers. They directed the religious life of Rome, and most importantly, they controlled finances.
Control the money, control everything.
Pretty much. This financial control was a powerful lever of influence, giving them incredible sway even without direct legislative power. Finally, the assembly. The power to pass laws was given to a number of popular assembly, like the Centuriate Assembly and the Tribal Assembly.
So there was some democratic element.
For some, yes. While not fully democratic in the modern sense, suffrage was limited and votes were weighted by class. They provided a mechanism for citizens to participate. This tripartite structure, with its checks and balances between consuls, senate, and assemblies, was ingeniously designed to prevent any one part from becoming too powerful, reflecting their deep-seated fear of monarchy.
That structure sounds incredibly robust. So what ultimately led to the Republic's decline and its transition into an empire, if it was so well designed?
It was robust for a time, but as Rome dramatically expanded its borders northward into Gaul, further east into Asia, and southward into Africa, the intricate, balanced government of the Republic became, well, unable to cope.
Just too big to manage.
Exactly. The sheer scale and complexity of managing such a vast and diverse territory proved too much for the existing Republican structures. Issues like coordinating distant military campaigns, governing diverse provinces, and managing increasing social inequalities at home stretched the Republic to its breaking point. This led to a significant shift. The rise of powerful generals and eventually the first emperor, Augustus, marking the birth of an empire around 27 BC.
And what happened to the old structures then?
Under the authority of the emperor, the popular assemblies all but disappeared, and the Senate became more and more ceremonial. Its role was primarily to endorse the wishes of the emperor rather than initiate policy.
So, just rubber stamp, really.
Largely, yes. Augustus, for his part, held supreme executive authority awarded by the Senate and granted powers that essentially consolidated control in one person. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the shift from republic to empire highlights the immense pressures of governance on a rapidly expanding state.
Makes sense.
The Republican model, designed for a city-state and its immediate surroundings, simply couldn't handle the demands of administering a world empire, demonstrating a fundamental limitation in its scalability.
Moving from the grand scale of governance, let's turn to the more personal yet equally telling visual expression of identity Roman fashion. They truly took the clothing traditions of the past and adapted them into one of history's most distinctive costume traditions.
They absolutely did. Our sources tell us that the greatest influences on Roman fashion came from two key places. The Etruscans, who had developed an advanced society in Italy centuries before Rome's rise.
Them again?
Yep. And of course, the Greeks, whose aesthetic sensibilities permeated so much of Roman culture. But the Romans rarely copied directly. They adapted and refined.
So what were the basics?
We see this influence clearly in specific garments. For men, the primary items were the tunica, essentially a simple knee-length shirt worn by pretty much everyone, from slaves to emperors.
The basic undergarment.
Right. And the toga, a long draped cloak made from a single piece of wool. The toga was the quintessential symbol of Roman citizenship. Only citizens could wear it, making it a powerful visual marker of status.
The famous toga.
Indeed. Interestingly, strict rules about the kinds of stripes or clavy-broad purple bands indicating senatorial rank, or narrow ones for equestrians, that could be worn on these garments in the early years gradually disappeared, becoming more relaxed over time as the empire evolved.
And for women?
For women, the respectable official outfit consisted of a long draped dress called a stola worn over a tunica.
In footwear. What did they wear on their feet?
When it came to footwear, the most primitive and common model worn in Rome over a long period was the carbatina, made simply from a single piece of ox hide wrapped around the foot and laced on.
Sounds basic.
Very. For more sturdy options, especially for outdoor wear, the Romans wore caligae, those robust open-work boots with thick soles and numerous straps, famously favored by soldiers for their durability and ventilation on long marches. The classic Roman soldier sandal, essentially.
So their clothing clearly signaled status. What about what leaders and soldiers wore? Did their fashion reflect their specific roles and authority?
Definitely. Clothing for royals and those in positions of authority was highly symbolic, designed to project power and identity. For instance, they adopted the lacerna, which was a short cloak made of coarse wool reaching to the thighs, often pinned at the top and frayed along the lower edge. Practical for travel or bad weather. Greaves, or shin guards worn during the empire in imitation of the Greek chlamydes, were part of the centurion's ceremonial equipment, signifying their rank and readiness for combat.
Like ceremonial armor.
Kind of. The cuirass, which was body armor, took various shapes over time. In Republican times, it might have been made of layers of hardened leather straps or two separate plates of brass. Later, it could even be a corselet of small metal plates, allowing for more flexibility and protection.
And signs of command.
Emperors and higher officers also tied a distinctive scarf around their waists as an emblem of command. Sometimes an apron of leather thongs was even attached to this belt, adding to the visual authority and practical protection. For battle, the general's helmet, originally cast in bronze and later forged in iron, was designed with a smooth crown, a neck guard, and in some cases a fixed or movable visor and cheek guards for maximum protection.
And the plumes.
Sometimes a majestic plume of feathers would top it off, making them instantly recognizable and intimidating on the battlefield. Shields were, of course, essential, and both armor and shields were often adorned with intricate badges or emblems, probably indicating legion or specific unit.
Like team logos.
Sort of, yeah. Functioning both as identification and morale boosters. Every element of their attire was carefully chosen to reflect identity, status, and role, whether for practical protection or powerful visual display.
Shifting from the practicalities of fashion, let's delve into Roman art, which is traditionally divided into two main periods, each reflecting distinct influences and evolving tastes.
Yes. The first is the art of the Roman Republic. When the Republic was founded, the term Roman art was virtually synonymous with the art of the city of Rome itself. It still bore the stamp of its Etruscan past, influenced heavily by the Etruscan civilization that had preceded and conquered them for a time.
Like the she-wolf statue.
Exactly. The Capitoline she-wolf with the twins, Romulus and Remus, which we discussed earlier, is a prime example from this period, reiterating its significance as an emblem of Rome. Its stylized, almost fierce depiction of the wolf contrasts with the later, more Hellenistic and idealized figures of the twins, showcasing that earlier, more archaic Roman aesthetic. This period demonstrates a foundational Roman aesthetic still heavily informed by their immediate predecessors.
Okay, and the second period.
The second period, the art of the Roman Empire, begins from 27 BC onward with the reign of Augustus. As the Roman Empire gradually expanded throughout Italy and across the Mediterranean, and as Romans became exposed to other artistic cultures, notably that of ancient Greece Roman art, shook off its dependence on Etruscan art and fully embraced Hellenistic influences.
So, more Greek influence again.
A lot more. During the last 2 centuries before Christ, a truly distinctive Roman manner of building, sculpting, and painting emerged, absorbing and transforming these influences into something uniquely Roman. This wasn't merely imitation, it was a deliberate and often brilliant act of cultural curation and reinterpretation.
So how did this unique Roman style manifest, particularly in the Empire period? Can you give us some specific examples of what defined it?
Absolutely. We see it in several incredible pieces that speak volumes about their aesthetic and political intentions. Take, for example, the Apollo with a kithara, a vibrant fresco fragment from the imperial period.
Like a kithara, like a lyre.
Exactly, an ancient Greek stringed instrument. This scene originally formed the center of a frieze, as confirmed by the interlaces colliding at the top. The young man depicted, resting on a marble throne and holding this musical instrument, is easily identified as Apollo, one of Augustus's patron gods.
Ah, connecting to the emperor.
Precisely. This piece showcases Roman mastery of painting and their embrace of Greek deities within their art, often co-opting them for their own imperial messaging. Then there's the iconic Augustus of Prima Porta, a stunning marble statue. Augustus is depicted as an imperator, a triumphant military commander in his military cloak, likely holding a laurel branch, a powerful symbol of a victor, in his outstretched right hand, with a lance probably resting in his left arm.
The ultimate power pose.
Totally. This statue is a masterful blend of idealized Greek forms like the heroic nude, with Roman practicality and political messaging, presenting Augustus as both a godlike figure and a capable leader. It's a superb example of art as propaganda.
You mentioned a mosaic.
Yes, another fantastic example that gives us a glimpse into daily life is the mosaic titled Preparation of a Theater Performance or a Rehearsal or a Satire. This intricate mosaic, made of differently colored small stones or tesserae, was found in the tablinum of the House of the Tragic Poet in Pompeii. It vividly reproduces a scene from the world of theater. You see a bearded choir conductor, as if on a stage outlined by 2 pillars and 2 columns, sitting in a cloak and sandals, holding a gnarled stick, surrounded by musicians and actors. It's a snapshot of Roman daily life and entertainment, depicted with incredible detail and demonstrating their sophisticated understanding of mosaic art. And it's important to re-emphasize the profound Greek influence on Roman art. For several centuries after the founding of the Republic, Roman art was indeed influenced by the Etruscans.
As we said.
Right. However, Etruscan artists frequently imitated the classical models of ancient Greece anyway. The Romans themselves, as we've noted, copied, imported, and collected Greek sculpture by the thousands, literally filling their villas and public spaces with Greek masterpieces or their Roman copies.
It's like collecting baseball cards, but with statues.
Kind of, just as they had borrowed the Greek gods and Romanized them. While no Greek monumental paintings have survived, it is well known that they heavily influenced Roman painters, especially in the development of perspective and illusionistic techniques that we'll touch on later.
So they were master curators, in a way.
This copy-paste model for cultural advancement, far from being a weakness, allowed the Romans to rapidly assimilate and then uniquely adapt existing aesthetic traditions, forging their own distinct artistic identity.
Moving from art, let's shift to the Romans' unparalleled building prowess. If we connect this to the bigger picture, their architecture truly defined their presence across the world, physically manifesting their imperial mindset. They were, without a doubt, master builders, leaving an enduring imprint.
They certainly were, and a crucial point of comparison to understand their genius is the fundamental difference between Greek and Roman architecture in their use of columns.
How so?
The Greeks used columns for their structural properties, for direct, honest support in post and lintel systems, embodying their belief in clear, visible structure.
Form follows function.
Exactly. The Romans, however, frequently used them in a non-structural and purely decorative sense, often placing them at corners of an impluvium, an internal basin, to support the architrave of the compluvium, the roof opening, for example, rather than bearing significant load.
So, more for show sometimes.
You could say that. This shift reveals a fundamental difference in aesthetic and engineering philosophy. The Greeks prioritized clear, functional form, while the Romans were masters of illusion and grand appearance, using architectural elements to create awe and impress, even if their structural role was secondary. When it comes to Roman architectural characteristics, privacy was incredibly important in their domestic designs, which often led to single-story residences, though occasionally two-story plans were incorporated for larger families or urban plots.
Hmm.
But what truly set them apart was their expertise in spatial planning and the strategic use of illusions. They were adept at the manipulation of three-dimensional spaces, often employing subsidiary structures within the atrium to guide movement and perception.
Like controlling the experience.
Precisely. They also famously used illusionistic devices, such as the decorative paintings on the walls of ancient Pompeii, which are remarkably well preserved. These paintings, particularly certain styles we'll discuss, effectively modified space and the way in which the viewer perceived it, demonstrating the Romans' competence in the use of perspective to render space, visually extending enclosed areas and creating a sense of grandeur, even in smaller rooms.
That's fascinating. So beyond clever illusions, what were their key innovations that allowed them to build on such a truly grand scale and with such durability that many of these structures still stand today?
Well, the Romans certainly used the traditional post and lintel method of construction, which involves horizontal beams resting on vertical supports. They're also credited with employing a rigid triangular framework of supporting beams, known as a truss.
Like in modern roofs.
Exactly, which allowed them to span larger distances for roofs and bridges than previously possible. But their most revolutionary contribution, and one that utterly transformed architecture, was the invention of concrete.
Ah, concrete. Was it really their invention?
They were certainly the masters who perfected and utilized it on an unprecedented scale. This was a remarkable composite material. A mortar made from lime mixed with sand and gravel, often volcanic ash. It was revolutionary because it allowed for incredible strength, flexibility, and the ability to cast vast, complex forms quickly and relatively cheaply.
A total game changer.
Absolutely. Building on this, they developed and mastered the arch, vault, and dome, enabling them to enclose vast interior spaces unobstructed by traditional load-bearing supports like rows of columns. This was an enormous engineering leap, allowing for the creation of grand, open public spaces like baths and basilicas that were previously impossible.
So no need for forests of columns inside.
Exactly. They mastered various types of vaults, from barrel vaults, groin vaults, creating expansive, column-free interiors that Greeks could only dream of, reshaping the very experience of interior space. They also refined architectural orders. The Tuscan order is a simplified version of the Greek Doric order, characterized by a base, an unfluted shaft, a simply molded capital, and a plain entablature.
Kind of sturdy and plain.
Right, giving it a sturdy, unadorned look that was often favored for more utilitarian or early structures. Then there's the composite order, which truly showcases Roman eclecticism and their love of ornamentation.
The fancy one.
Definitely the fanciest. This order combines the prominent volutes, the scrolls of the Ionic order, with the acanthus leaves of the Corinthian on its capital, making it, as our sources state, the most decorative of the orders. Its shaft could be fluted or plain, adding to its versatility and allowing for an impressive visual statement on major imperial buildings.
It's truly astounding the range and sheer variety of structures they built, from private homes to massive public works. Let's dive into some of the most iconic categories and what they reveal about Roman life.
It is indeed. Roman civilization was far more complex than many realize, and their building complexes were always designed to be both practical and convenient, reflecting the intricate needs of their society. We can categorize them broadly. First, domestic architecture. Right. The Romans built three basic types of dwellings. The domus, which were private townhouses for the wealthy, villas, grand country houses for leisure and agricultural management, and insulae.
Apartment blocks.
Exactly, multi-story apartment blocks that housed the majority of the urban population, reflecting the incredible density of Roman cities. A remarkable example of a villa is Hadrian's villa at Tivoli, Italy, built from AD 118-34.
That sounds amazing.
It was the largest Roman villa ever built and more like a miniature city, a sprawling complex built by Emperor Hadrian as a retreat. Our sources describe its canopus section, named after a 2-mile canal in Greece, which consists of a series of pillars and arches interspersed with copies of Greek sculptures surrounding an elongated pool.
Yeah.
This section wasn't just decorative. It was a complex aquatic theater and dining area, showcasing a deliberate blend of Roman and Hellenistic influences, and serving as a microcosm of Hadrian's vast empire and his cultural interests. The sheer diversity of Roman housing types reflects the profound social stratification within their society. Next, we have public buildings, structures designed to facilitate the vast machinery of Roman daily life, commerce, and administration. The Forum was the heart of any Roman town or city.
The main square.
Basically, yes. It was an open square, serving as a vital meeting and market area, often lined with colonnades, housing small shops, and surrounded by important public buildings like temples and basilicas. It was essentially the Roman equivalent of the Greek agora, the civic heart of the community where everything from political speeches to commercial transactions took place. Then there's the basilica. These were large rectangular buildings where Romans conducted governmental and business affairs. Their floor plan typically consisted of a broad central aisle, separated by colonnades or arcades from two or more lower, narrower side aisles.
Like a big hall.
Right. This design allowed for efficient movement and multiple activities simultaneously. Notable examples include the Basilica of Maxentius, begun between 307 and 310, and completed by Constantine, a massive structure featuring grand vaulted ceilings, and the Basilica Ulpia, named after Trajan's family, which was flanked by two great hemicycles, creating an impressive experience to walk under its arcades.
What did they use it for?
The Ulpia served as a court, a commodity exchange, a business place, and a popular strolling target, highlighting Roman efficiency in public administration and commerce. The public baths were establishments of truly unique scale, made possible by the plentiful and consistent water supply from Roman aqueducts.
The famous Roman baths.
Exactly. The most famous are the baths of Caracalla in Rome. These were far more than just places to get clean. They were massive social hubs. They contained a great central hall with 3 large chambers, the tepidarium, a warm bath, the frigidarium, a cold bath, and the caldarium, a hot bath, like a sauna.
The whole spa experience.
Totally, plus many smaller dressing rooms, meeting rooms, exercise halls, and open courts. We also see examples like the caldarium of the women's baths, Herculaneum. The Romans were even attracted to natural hot springs, founding the city of Bath in England to exploit their medicinal value, turning hygiene into a communal, even luxurious experience that underpinned public health and social interaction. Roman theaters evolved significantly from their Greek predecessors. They were not only hollowed out of hillsides, as Greek ones often were, but were also increasingly built up from flat ground using concrete vaulting.
Using that concrete again?
Right, which supported tiers of seats and created connecting corridors underneath. The stave itself became more important, raised and brought into immediate connection with the auditorium, often with an elaborate architectural backdrop. The central ground area, traditionally for the chorus, was now assigned to senators and other dignitaries.
Any famous example?
A notable example is the theater at Orange, France, built in the 1st century AD, which still boasts an impressive stage wall. This innovation in construction freed Roman theater building from geographical constraints, allowing them to construct entertainment venues anywhere in the empire. Amphitheaters are characteristically Roman buildings found in every important settlement. They are excellent exponents of the Roman character, as the Romans openly preferred displays of mortal combat, which they considered good training for a nation of warriors, to the tame mimicry of the stage.
The gladiators.
Exactly. The Colosseum of Rome, officially known as the Flavian Amphitheater, is the prime example, capable of accommodating 50,000 spectators.
50,000.
Incredible, isn't it? Its rows of seats were supported by a complex network of concrete vaults, making it similar to a modern sports arena, and it was famously designed for gladiatorial contests and combats between men and animals. These brutal spectacles served as a social ritual, a political tool, and a constant reminder of Roman martial prowess. The circuses, designed primarily for horse and chariot racing, were derived from the Greek hippodrome and stadium. Chariot racing was enormously popular, transcending social classes.
Like modern football or something.
Very much so, with vast sums spent on training and selection of horses and drivers. Famous charioteers were literally the idols of the day, risking life and limb for rich rewards and immense public adoration.
High stakes.
Definitely. While 4-horse chariots were usual, teams of up to 10 horses were also used for even greater spectacle. The Circus Maximus in Rome is the most famous example, a massive oval arena that could seat hundreds of thousands, reflecting the Roman appetite for mass entertainment, risk, and celebrity culture. Finally, the aqueducts. The Romans placed immense importance on an adequate water supply, requiring vast quantities for their thermae, public baths, public fountains, and domestic supply for their large population.
How much water are we talking?
Our sources estimate that an astonishing 1,610 million liters, or 350 million gallons of water, poured daily into Rome by 11 great aqueducts. This water was then distributed to public buildings and fountains by lead pipes. An aqueduct is fundamentally a pipe or channel for moving water to a lower level, often across great distances, utilizing gravity and ingenious engineering. The Roman aqueduct in Spain, named El Puente, stretching from Spain's Frio River to the city of Segovia, stands as one of the best preserved ruins, a multi-tiered stone marvel that required no mortar, a pure testament to their engineering brilliance and commitment to public health. Next, let's look at religious architecture. Roman temples came in two main types. Those rectangular in plan, which generally resembled Greek temples and were the more common form.
Like the Parthenon, sort of?
Similar idea, yeah.
Yeah.
And those circular in plan. The most magnificent and enduring of the round temples is the Pantheon of Rome.
The Pantheon. Incredible building.
It truly illustrates the Roman ability to create vast and dramatic interior spaces. It's covered by a huge concrete dome, the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world to this day. Still, its weight is ingeniously reduced by rectangular recesses called coffers, which also add a beautiful geometric pattern. The heaviness of the inside walls is relieved by hollowed-out niches that once held statues of gods. And that central oculus, a large open hole at the very top of the dome, admits a single powerful shaft of light to the interior, creating a dynamic, almost spiritual connection to the heavens. It's an engineering marvel that speaks to Rome's ambition in connecting the human and divine. For tombs, the Romans practiced both cremation and interment throughout their history, with trends shifting over time. Sarcophagi for ashes are sometimes found in the same tomb chambers as interred bodies.
But they did both.
Yes. During the 2nd century AD, cremation became less usual, and wealthy citizens were embalmed and placed in massive and costly sarcophagi, often elaborately carved with mythological scenes or portraits of the deceased.
Like the Egyptian influence.
Possibly some influence, yes. Roman law strictly forbade burial inside the city confines, so vast necropolises and subterranean networks of passages, or catacombs, developed outside the urban centers, such as the catacombs of Domitilla and the catacombs of St. Calixtus.
Right.
Examples of sarcophagi include the beautifully intricate Bacchus and the Four Seasons sarcophagus, showing their artistic skill even in death. These practices reveal evolving Roman views on the afterlife and the importance of commemorating the dead. An important category of Roman architecture was developed specifically to celebrate the actions of individuals, usually emperors or victorious generals, and these are known as commemorative architecture.
Celebrating the big wins.
Exactly. This reflects the Roman emphasis on personal glory and imperial achievement. This includes town gateways and archways. While part of protective wall circuits and usually simple, some were elaborated into grand commemorative monuments, acting as imposing entrances and symbols of civic pride.
Like the Porta Nigra.
A prime example is the Porta Nigra, Latin for Blackgate, in Trier, Germany, which is today the largest Roman city gate and offers a powerful view from the town side. Its scale and robustness showcase not just defensive capability, but imperial presence. Then we have triumphal arches, built specifically in honor of emperors or victorious generals following a significant military triumph. These arches were adorned with appropriate bas-reliefs depicting scenes from the victories, and typically carried gilt bronze statuary or an Attic story with a dedicatory inscription on its face.
Like billboards for victories.
Pretty much. The Arch of Titus, with its specific sculpture reliefs depicting the spoils from Jerusalem, is a famous example. Even more striking is the Arch of Constantine, situated between the Colosseum and the Palatine Hill.
Constantine again.
Yes, erected by the Roman Senate to commemorate Constantine I's victory over Maxentius at the Battle of Milvian Bridge in 312 AD and dedicated in 315 AD, it is the latest of the existing triumphal arches in Rome and the only one to make extensive use of spolia.
Spolia, what's that?
Spolia refers to the extensive reuse of architectural or sculptural elements from older monuments. In this case, several major reliefs from 2nd century imperial monuments were incorporated into Constantine's arch.
Recycling bits of older arches.
Exactly. This creates a striking and famous stylistic contrast with the sculpture newly created for the arch. A fascinating example of architectural recycling that also conveyed a message of continuity and legacy. The Arch of Septimius Severus is another prominent example in the Roman Forum. These arches weren't just decorative, they were powerful tools of propaganda, reinforcing imperial image and reminding citizens of Rome's military might and divine favor. Open-air altars also served a commemorative purpose, often for moments of peace and prosperity rather than just military victories. One of the most symbolic marble monuments of Augustus's reign was the Arapacis.
The altar of peace.
Right, the altar of Augustan peace, dedicated Pax, the Roman goddess of peace. Commissioned by the Roman Senate in 13 BC and consecrated in 9 BC, it honored Augustus's return to Rome after 3 years campaigning in Hispania and Gaul.
Celebrating peace, not war.
Precisely. Its intricate sculptural friezes depict a procession, including Augustus, his family, and members of the Roman elite, presenting an image of a unified, prosperous Rome under Augustan rule. It celebrated peace as a deliberate imperial achievement, a cornerstone of Augustus's new golden age. Finally, commemorative columns. Single, freestanding, colossal columns had been used as commemorative monuments since the Hellenistic period. However, the unique Roman contribution was the addition of a ribbon-like documentary narrative frieze.
Like Trajan's column.
Exactly. This was first used and is best exemplified in Trajan's column, erected in honor of his victories over the Dacians, the inhabitants of modern-day Romania. The column is covered in a continuous spiral frieze depicting scenes from his Dacian wars, almost like a giant comic strip climbing up the column.
Incredible detail.
It's fascinating to note that there were originally 2 libraries flanking the column, underscoring its dual role as both a monumental tribute and a historical record, an unparalleled achievement in Roman narrative art. From a modern point of view, Roman design appears technically advanced, orderly, systematic, and aesthetically impressive. However, it's often seen as, well, ostentatious, overly decorative, and at times lacking in subtlety compared to, say, Greek classical restraint.
Flashy, maybe.
Perhaps. This brings us to a compelling question for discussion. Does functionality always lead to aesthetic subtlety, or can grandeur become a design goal in itself? For the Romans, it seems grandeur was very much the point, a deliberate choice to display power, wealth, and the overwhelming might of their empire through every column, arch, and dome.
That's a great question, and it really shifts our perspective from simply admiring their scale to understanding their intention. So after marveling at their grand public works and their projections of power, what was it actually like to live inside a Roman house? How were these incredible spaces designed for daily life, privacy, and social interaction?
Our sources give us a fantastic detailed example with the House of Fawn in Pompeii, which exhibits a typical axial arrangement and common parts, revealing much about Roman domestic life.
Okay, walk us through it.
When you entered, you first passed through the vestibulum, which was the insect-covered area directly off the street, essentially a small entry porch. Following that was the fasces, a low-ceilinged and relatively small-scale space that served as an immediate, modest transition from the public street into the more private realm of the home.
Like an airlock.
Sort of, yeah. Then you would enter the atrium, which was the main reception area of the house. This space was critical for furnishing, ventilation, and natural light, acting as the social heart in the house where guests were received and clients would wait.
The main hall.
Exactly. It featured an aperture in the roof called the compluvium, through which rainwater could enter for storage in a cistern, and directly beneath it was the impluvium, a shallow basin of the same size as the compluvium, used to collect that precious rainwater.
Clever water collection.
Very. Beyond the atrium was the tablinum, a space between the atrium and the larger, more private peristyle, often open to both, offering the most commanding view of the house. It served as a vital passageway to the peristyle, providing direct access to the rear garden.
The master's office, maybe?
Kind of. It was also called the seat of power because the master of the house would often receive visitors here, controlling the access of entry into the more private parts of the home, a clear spatial hierarchy. Further into the house, you'd find the peristyle, a grand, open-air, columned courtyard distinct from the atrium. These were often elaborate, featuring fountains and beautifully designed gardens with an infinite variety of designs, providing an open, green, and tranquil space within the urban dwelling, a private oasis.
Like an internal garden.
Precisely. An exidra was a specific room, usually quite grand, with a full view of the garden and a full-width opening, allowing the garden to become an aesthetic and often social extension of the interior. The cubiculum was the bedroom, typically a more private, smaller space with just one door opening into the atrium or a corridor. And then there were the triclinia, the dining rooms, so called from the practice of arranging 3 couches, or klein, in a U-shaped formation around a lower table for dining.
So they really did eat lying down.
Often, yes, for formal meals. These dining rooms were versatile and could be set up in various locations, under a peristyle roof, or even in the open air for different seasons, like sheltered winter or autumn triclinia versus more airy summer triclinia, showcasing adaptability to climate and social needs. Other spaces included the allée, which were recesses with one wall completely open to the atrium, offering additional open-plan areas that might have held portraits or family archives. Of course, there were also bathrooms, specialized spaces like guest rooms or kitchens, and often shops integrated directly into the house's front.
A shop in the front of the house.
Yeah, blurring the line between private residence and commercial enterprise. The dressed floor plan of the House of Fawn is truly representative, embodying all these elements and showcasing the thoughtful, axial layout of a typical Roman home designed to balance public display with private family life.
That detailed layout paints such a vivid picture of Roman domestic life. Now, let's get into the specifics. What materials and decorative techniques did they use to bring these spaces to life? Their interiors weren't just functional, they were incredibly ornate, designed to impress and delight.
They certainly were. First, let's talk about materials. For building and structural components, they used a wide array, demonstrating their mastery over local resources. Terracotta, various types of stone, sand, gravel, lava, and durable travertine.
The strong stuff.
Right? But for luxury and finishing, particularly for the wealthy, marble was paramount, imported from across the empire. When it came to facing materials and decorative techniques for interior surfaces, they were true masters, transforming plain walls into vibrant canvases. Mosaic, using small pieces called tesserae of various materials like stone, glass, or ceramic, set in mortar, was used extensively for floors, walls, and even ceilings, forming intricate designs that were both durable and highly artistic.
Those tiny tiles.
Exactly. Plaster was another common material, especially as a base for painting and decorative finishes. And then there's fresco, the art of painting on a moist plaster surface with colors ground up in water or a lime water mixture. This technique allowed for remarkable depth and vibrancy because the pigments bonded directly with the drying plaster, making the colors incredibly durable.
Painting into the wall, almost.
Essentially, yes. Our sources highlight how the use of perspective rendering did much to visually extend enclosed spaces. This means artists use sophisticated techniques to create illusions of windows, corridors, or landscapes, essentially making rooms appear larger and more open than they actually were, a brilliant way to overcome the constraints of physical space.
Architectural illusion.
Precisely. A smooth, polished plaster surface was essential for fresco painting of fine quality, and tempera, pigment mixed with an egg yolk binder, was employed to add fine details to dry plaster. Roman wall paintings evolved through 4 distinct and fascinating styles, each reflecting changing tastes and artistic capabilities. The first style, or incrustation, dating from around 200 to 60 BC, was characterized by colorful blocks painted on the wall to resemble large, expensive marble slabs.
Faking it till you make it.
Kind of, creating a marbleizing or faux finish effect that was a clever, more affordable imitation of costly materials. The second style, or architectural, from the mid-1st century BC, saw a revolutionary leap. It tended to reflect everyday objects and scenery, featuring elaborate illusions of windows and covered walkways lined with painted columns that looked onto imaginary scenes, often expansive landscapes or cityscapes.
Trying to break down the walls.
Exactly. This style aimed to dissolve the walls and visually extend the enclosed space, depicting objects of daily life with surprising realism, even showing textures like metal and glass, creating immersive, expanded realities. The third style, or ornamental, from 20 BC to 60 AD, marked a shift, almost a rejection of the grand illusionism of the second style in favor of pure ornamentation. It featured monochromatic walls painted with just a few small pieces of architecture or delicate vignettes.
More subtle.
More subtle, more focused on elegance, offering artists and patrons more flexibility and intimacy. The style became less architecturally realistic, focusing on elegant central motifs and delicate borders, a move towards refined abstract elegance. Finally, the fourth style, or intricate, emerging around the mid-1st century AD, was a maximalist style that incorporated elements of all the earlier styles.
Everything but the kitchen sink.
Pretty much. It consisted of a variety of architectural elements arranged in an unrealistic manner, often with unrealistic perspective, combining large-scale mythological scenes with small vignettes, faux marble, and intricate, fantastical elements. It was a complex and sometimes overwhelming visual experience, blending grand illusions with delicate ornamentation. For floors and floor treatment, they used sophisticated techniques. Opus signum was common, a durable flooring made of crushed terracotta laid in a herringbone pattern, sometimes combined with slabs of polished marble or limestone cut in rectangular shapes for added visual interest.
Okay.
Opus sectile involved larger pieces of colored stone cut into precise polygonal shapes and inlaid in abstract and figurative patterns, creating truly stunning, geometric, and often pictorial floors that resembled intricate puzzles.
Like giant stone jigsaws.
Exactly. Mosaic, distinguished from opus sectile by using very small tesserae, was also extensively used for floors, allowing for highly detailed pictorial scenes reflecting their incredible craftsmanship and artistic variety underfoot. Ceilings and ceiling treatment were equally elaborate, demonstrating that no surface was left unadorned. Ceiling shapes could be octagonal, featured diamond plaques, or variations for coffered ceilings, also known as lacunars.
Like in the Pantheon Dome.
Precisely. Coffers are recessed panels, often square or polygonal, in a ceiling or dome. Not only were they decorative, but they also significantly reduced the weight of the structure, demonstrating a brilliant blend of aesthetics and engineering. For decorative techniques, stucco relief was common, where intricate patterns were stamped by patterned molds in low relief while the plaster was still wet, allowing for fine details.
Stamped plaster. Clever.
Very. The stucco framework was often white or white rendered against a colored background, with the division between the ceiling and the wall articulated by a decorative stucco band, ensuring every element contributed to the overall grandeur. Finally, the ornaments and motifs used, often drawing from Greek prototypes but reinterpreted, were rich and diverse. These included abstract foliage, flowers, and draped festoons in floral and leaf arrangements. Mythological creatures and figures like the Sphinx, often used as guardians, and grotesques, fanciful creatures combining human, animal, and plant forms were popular.
Grotesques.
Yeah, those strange hybrid figures you sometimes see. The animal world was represented by figures like the lion, ram, and dog, symbolizing power, fertility, or loyalty. Human figures were used, often in three-dimensional support positions, like caryatids or atlantes supporting architectural elements. And other classical elements, such as the fret, honeysuckle, and anthemion, were frequently employed, adding to the intricate beauty and classical feel of Roman interiors.
It's clear that every surface was a canvas for their artistry. Now let's transition to the furniture that filled these elaborate spaces. So what kind of furniture did the Romans use, and what does it tell us about their daily lifestyle, comfort, and status?
Roman furniture was both highly functional and a clear indicator of status, and they used a remarkably diverse range of materials for its construction, far more varied than earlier civilizations.
What kind of materials?
Our sources list maple, marble, and bronze, the most widely used metal for furniture, along with limestone, iron, copper, rare and fragrant woods like citron, common woods like beech, oak, holly, willow, fir, cedar, lime, and exotic imports like ebony and satinwood.
Wow, quite a list.
And they were incredibly skilled in construction techniques as well, employing advanced methods such as tenons, interlocking joints, intricate carving, dowels, strong glues, nails, delicate inlay, applying veneer, thin layers of expensive wood, painting, plating, applying metal coatings, and turning, shaping wood on a lathe to craft their pieces with precision and artistry. When it comes to specific types of furniture, seat furniture was prominent and highly varied. There were thrones, or solomum, often depicted as seats for the gods, but also used by emperors and high officials for official functions.
Big, imposing seats.
Exactly. These were typically solid-sided, imposing seats with rounded or rectangular backs and solid bases adorned with carved relief designs, projecting immense authority. The chair or cathedra drew heavily from the Greek klizmos, but often featured a deeper, more strongly curved chessboard for the back, offering greater comfort and a more distinctive Roman profile. A particularly significant type of stool was the sella curulis. This distinctive X-shaped folding stool was depicted as a seat of honor and a powerful symbol of legal authority, used by high magistrates and, notably, the emperor himself. Bronze was the most common material used for it, reflecting its importance and durability for official ceremonies.
The official folding chair.
Pretty much. The Romans also made greater use of tables, or mensae, than the Greeks, indicating a more varied and perhaps active domestic life. Some tables were designed to be collapsible and easily transportable, suitable for various activities or seasonal relocations. Examples of table supports include intricate bronze tripod tables with setter leg supports, showcasing their artistic flair even in functional items.
And for storage.
For storage pieces, they had robust chests, or arca, typically made of wood, often bound with iron and ornamented with bronze locks and hinges for security, used for valuables. Cabinets or cupboards, known as armarium, were made of wood and could have doors, curtains, or open shelves, serving as more general storage for scrolls, clothing, or household items. Finally, the bed, or couch, the lectus, was highly versatile and central to Roman life. It was used not just for sleeping, but also for eating, sitting, and relaxing throughout the day.
The multi-purpose couch.
Right. We've previously discussed how common it was for dining arrangements to involve three couches, or klein, set at right angles around a low table in the triclinium, a distinctive feature of Roman social life that allowed for comfortable reclining during meals, transforming dining into a more leisurely and communal ritual. The quality and ornamentation of these couches reflected the owner's wealth and status.
To round out our look at Roman interiors, and thinking about all this ornamentation and luxury, what about the colors? Were Roman spaces as grand and vibrant as their architecture implies, or were they more muted than we might imagine?
Absolutely vibrant. Our sources emphatically emphasize that the Romans were builders at heart and made more lavish use of raw materials, marbles in bright hues, gold, bronze, and mosaics.
Old choices.
Definitely. While their gods were still identified largely with Greek prototypes, their interiors were bold and incredibly dynamic. The color record from the remarkably preserved cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum is exceptionally complete and falls squarely within the classical tradition, showcasing a bold and uninhibited use of bright colors and deep hues. They were not afraid of intense, saturated pigments.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. You can see specific examples like deep cobalt blue, often used to create expansive sky effects, crisp ivory white for contrast and light, the striking Pompeii rose, a deep red, vivid scarlet for dramatic impact, rich gold used for accents and luxury, and medium Pompeii green, often for natural motifs.
A really rich palette.
It was. These colors weren't just decorative, they contributed profoundly to the psychological and social atmosphere of Roman life. They created spaces that were not just impressive, but also lively, engaging, and reflective of the owner's status and the empire's vast resources. It truly brings to life the notion that Roman interiors were designed to immerse, impress, and celebrate.
We've covered an incredible breadth of knowledge today, from the enigmatic Etruscan foundations that shaped early Rome, through the intricate evolution of their political genius from republic to empire, all the way to the meticulous details of Roman interior design and their revolutionary architecture.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is. It's clear how Rome's unparalleled adaptability and sheer ingenuity allowed it to forge an empire whose influence truly endured for centuries and continues to influence us today.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the Roman Empire wasn't just a historical period of conquest and rule. It was a vast, interconnected laboratory for human endeavor.
A laboratory, I like that.
They were constantly absorbing, adapting, and innovating across every conceivable facet of life, whether it was their pragmatic approach to religion, their revolutionary political structures, their transformative art and engineering, or even the seemingly simple act of building and decorating a home. Their willingness to integrate, to borrow, and transform is precisely what made their legacy so pervasive and enduring.
So, what does this all mean for us today? Considering Rome's remarkable ability to absorb, adapt, and innovate, how much of our own modern world, our laws, our architecture, our very ways of organizing society, is still a continuous deep dive into the innovations and compromises first forged in the Roman Empire?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It's a connection worth pondering, and perhaps a reminder that the past is never truly past.